When all the warriors had been assembled, arranged in proper order with their leaders, the Trojans marched with calls and cries like birds, just like the cries of cranes across the sky when they escape torrential winter rains and fly towards the streams of ocean and bring destruction to the pygmy people. Out of the air they strike and start the conflict. The Greeks marched silently, breathing aggression, their hearts determined to protect each other. As on the peaks of some high mountain top, the south wind, notice, pours a fog so thick that nobody can see beyond a stone's throw. Unwelcome to the shepherds, but for thieves better than night. So rose the cloud of dust beneath their feet. They hurtled at such speed across the plain. As they drew near each other, the fighter at the forefront of the Trojans was godlike Paris Alexander, wearing a cloak of panther skin draped round his shoulders. He held a curving bow and sword, and brandished 2 spears, both tipped with bronze. He stood in front and summoned all the bravest of the Greeks to fight him hand to hand in deadly combat. When Menelaus, friend of Ares, noticed Paris come striding out before the crowd, he was delighted. As a starving lion is thrilled to come upon a massive carcass, a stag with antlers, or a mountain goat, and avidly begins to eat the flesh, even if eager hunters and quick hounds attack him. In the same way, Menelaus was thrilled to set his eyes on godlike Paris, believing he would make the culprit pay. At once he seized his weapons and jumped down out of his chariot onto the ground. When godlike Paris Alexander saw him appear among the foremost line of fighters, his confidence was battered, and he slunk back to his group of friends, avoiding death. As in the valleys of a mountainside when someone sees a snake and startles back, their body trembles and their cheeks turn pale and off they run, so godlike Paris, frightened of Menelaus, son of Atreus, drew back among the throng of Trojan fighters. But Hector saw him, reproached and shamed him. "Pathetic Paris, womanizer, cheat! You are the very best at looking pretty. Oh, how I wish that you had never lived or died unmarried. That would be far better than life as such an object of contempt. The Greeks will surely laugh at you and say you look so handsome, like a champion. But in your heart there is no will to fight, no courage. Yet, despite your feebleness, you gathered up a crew of trusty men and sailed sturdy ships across the sea to intermingle with the foreigners, and brought a pretty woman back with you, whose relatives by marriage are strong spearmen. You brought such great suffering to all of us, your father and your city, all of our people. You pleased our enemies, but shamed yourself. Why could you not fight warlike Menelaus? You ought to know the man whose wife you took. The gifts of Aphrodite will not help you, your lyre, your hair, and your attractiveness, when you are lying mingled with the dust. The Trojans are such cowards. Were they not, they would have dressed you in a shirt of rocks for all the evils you have perpetrated." But godlike Paris Alexander answered, "Hector, it is quite reasonable for you to scold me in this way. Your heart is always tough as an axe that slices through a tree used by a skillful man to build a ship. It magnifies the power of the man. The spirit in your heart is just as fearless. But do not blame me for the lovely gifts of golden Aphrodite. Glorious gifts that come from the gods that they themselves have given must not be thrown away, although no human chooses them willingly. Now, if you want me to fight in battle and to join the war, you must line up the other Greeks and Trojans in the middle of them all. Set me to fight with Menelaus, friend of Ares, for Helen and for all the wealth and treasure, and let the winning man, the stronger fighter, get all the wealth and take the woman home. The rest of you must sacrifice and swear a solemn oath of friendship. Keep your homes in fertile Troy and let the Greeks return to Greece, where horses pasture in the fields and women are most beautiful." These words delighted Hector, and he went among the lines of Trojan troops and held them back, grasping the middle of his spear. All sat. The long-haired Greeks hurled javelins at him and pelted stones and shot at him with arrows, but Agamemnon, lord of men, called out, "Hold back, young men of Greece, and do not shoot him. Hector in his bright helmet comes to talk." At once they stopped attacking and fell silent. Hector addressed both armies. "Listen now, Trojans and well-armed Greeks, to what the man who started this whole conflict has to say. Paris is asking all the other Trojans and all the other Greeks to set aside our splendid weapons on the earth that feeds us, while he himself fights warlike Menelaus, holding a duel in the midst of us for Helen and for all the wealth. The winner will get the wealth and take the woman home. The rest of you must sacrifice and swear a solemn oath of friendship." So he spoke. Then everyone was silent. No one spoke, till Menelaus, master of the war cry, called out to them, "Now listen to me also. My heart is suffering from dreadful grief. I think the Greeks and Trojans must disperse. You have already suffered too much harm from my dispute with Paris, which he started. Death is the destiny of one of us. Let that man die. The rest of you fall back at once, and let the Trojans bring 2 sheep, a white ram, and a black ewe as their gifts, for earth and sun. We shall provide a 3rd to sacrifice to Zeus. Call Priam here, to sacrifice and swear the oath himself, because his sons are arrogant and faithless. Let no one overstep the oaths of Zeus. The minds of younger men are always flighty. When an old man is present at a meeting, he can assess the interests of both sides, because he looks to both the past and future." At this, the Greeks and Trojans were delighted. They hoped the agonizing war would end. They lined the horses and the chariots up, got out, and took their weapons off and set them heaped on the ground, one laid beside the next, covering almost every inch of earth. Then Hector made the heralds rush to town to bring the sheep and summon Priam out. Lord Agamemnon sent Talithebus down to the hollow ships to bring the ram. The man obeyed great Agamemnon. Iris went as a messenger to white-armed Helen, shaped like Laodice, her husband's sister, the wife of influential Helicon, Antareus' son. She was the prettiest of Priam's daughters, and in this disguise Iris found Helen in the palace hall, weaving a massive double-layered cloth in dazzling colors, patterning upon it the many troubles, tests, and tribulations that Trojan horsemen and bronze-armored Greeks suffered at Ares' hands because of her. Swift-footed Iris stood near her and said, "Sweet sister, come with me, so you can see the new, extraordinary behavior of Trojan horsemen and of bronze-armed Greeks. Before they were intent on deadly war. Across the plain they carried to each other Ares, the god of tears, the god of war. But now they sit in silence. War has ceased. The warriors lean back against their shields, their long spears fixed beside them in the earth. Paris and Menelaus, friends of Ares, will fight a duel for you with long spears. You will be called the winner's loving wife."